Welcome to this episode of The Good, The Bad and The Odd One Out with your host Mark. Today I want to talk, this is my second set of James Bond movies I want to talk about. I did recently did the first three up to Goldfinger, and this one I'll be covering Thunderball, which is the fourth Sean Connery entry, Casino Royale, which was a sort of random entry, nothing to do with the usual Eon kind of movies, and then back to Sean Connery with You Only Live Twice. Alright, Thunderball, made in 1965, like I say, was the fourth Bond adventure. Starts off well with, you see a funeral of someone with the initials JB, and it turns out to be not James Bond, someone else, where James Bond attends and goes on and offers condolences to the widow before punching her, and it turns out that the widow is the guy who's supposed to be dead in drag. James Bond has a fight with him, basically kills him, gets a rocket pack and flies out of there, gets to his lovely Aston Martin. Guys start trying to chase him and he fires water at them and drives off. Reasonable start. We're getting kind of used to the James Bond trope of something happening that's nothing to do with the main story as a little mini adventure to give you a taster. And then it kicks off into the main story, which involves shenanigans around a plot to steal nuclear missiles and then ransom the world, or England, or whoever, pay £100 million for this not to happen. It's reasonably okay. I have a bit of trouble with this one. I find it probably the most boring of Sean Connery's adventures. Even one of the later ones, Diamonds Are Forever, which is a bit flat, and I think they didn't put much budget in. Even that's got more fun in than this. This one has a problem with it. It's only really set in two places: a health farm, which isn't thrilling, but it's alright, and Jamaica. Now that's fine, but we've seen Jamaica before, not that long part before in Doctor No, and they don't really do that much different with it here. It kind of, and additionally, a lot of the action involves things happening undersea, which looks pretty. It's a real travelogue of a movie, but you just don't feel the characters so much. It's especially when you get to the grand ending, when there's a big fight between two groups, the good guys and the bad guys. They're distinguished by colours of their wetsuits. The good guys are orange, bad are black, but we don't really care about them, and it goes on a bit. I have not a fan of this film. It's alright, kind of like the song, Tom Jones song. It's alright. Apparently this film was originally going to be called Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and there is an alternate theme song, Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, by Dionne Warwick. It's really nice song. But what happened was, apparently a rival cheapo film came out just before it, called Mr. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I think it was a Philippines film or something, and they obviously didn't want to let that have any traction. They changed the title to Thunderball. Like I say, it's kind of various shenanigans. The one thing I do like about it is that there's a Bond evil villainess number 2 in this to Blofeld, played by Martine Beswick, who's got long red hair, and she's really quite good. I think she's quite a good villainess, though she gets dispatched fairly easily by someone trying to shoot Bond and him just swinging her around. She does it. Goes out really easily, which is a shame. She was quite a good villain up to it. One of the other problems with the film, I think, is the villain, Emilio Largo. The guy that plays him really looks the part. He really looks like a good villain. He's really sort of striking looking. He's got an eye patch, shock of white hair. It looks really good. Not given anything to do. Really one-dimensional villain, not interesting at all. Not like, say, Goldfinger, or in fact almost anyone in any of the Bond films before this. He was like the flattest villain of all up to this point, and that really didn't work in the film's favour. There's some other things I have issues with. There's the final sequence where a boat gets powered out while Bond's fighting, so the boat's going really fast. The film is so obviously some speeded up shots of a boat going fast, but speeded up to like Benny Hill levels of comedy. It doesn't look good. Not my favourite film by any means. I like the bits with Blofeld. We don't get much of Blofeld, but I think it was a shame. The guy that played Largo was good, but he was just given way too little to do, and it was a problem. A film has some interesting ramifications coming off of it. Because it was co-written by Fleming and another guy called Kevin McClory, it meant Kevin McClory retained some of the rights. Those were actually rolled out in he tried to roll that out into his own production line almost. Sony claimed they had some rights, though they had to be very careful. They could use the name James Bond, but very little. Anything derived from the films they definitely couldn't use, so they had to be very careful. It spawned a film in the 80s called Never Say Never Again, which I'll be getting onto when we come to it, with Sean Connery. I think is actually far superior to this film. They actually make the film more interesting for a start, and it's just done better. But also there was a period where Kevin McCloy was trying to sort of roll this into yet another version of the same Thunderball story, which I think was called Warhead 2000, and he was talking about things like where Connery was the bad guy, George Lazenby was going to be our sidekick, Dalton was going to be the Bond. I think it was all talk just to try and interest money myself, but it's finally been put to rest in court. I think that is basically he's left it too long. I think in the 2005 kind of, around that time, the court came out against him, so that kind of died a death. That sort of thing. It was all right, as I say. 61 out of 100. I give this. Then we get into a real nutty one. A couple of years later, right? You Only Live Twice was due to come out in the summer of 67. However, this alternative production, which I think came about because in America they did like a TV version of Casino Royale, the book Casino Royale, before any of the Sean Connery films in the 50s, which meant someone had some rights to Casino Royale. And what they did is they rolled these rights into this film, and it's a nutty film. It's nothing like any James Bond film. It's like a camp. It's got the spirit of, say, the Beatles movie Help or the 60s Batman about it. It's like nutty and silly and colourful, and tries to put throw a lot of energy up on the screen, and it's made lots of different sort of little vignettes of stories that try to coalesce into a whole, but they don't really. There's some nice sequence. I kind of like parts of it. Sir James Bond in this is played by David Niven, as an quite a bit older character than what we used to see, and he even comments at one point that I hope we're not going to get any of that and shenanigans like that sex maniac you've given my name to who's running around. No, he does. That is a dig at Sean Connery, I think, but it's also a dig at another character in this film as well. They couldn't get away with just saying that. I think. Basically, MI5 or whatever take the decision they're going to call all their agents James Bond to confuse the enemy. That's the kind of things that happen. What I will say about the film is it's a mess. It is a mess. It's an unholy mess. It's silly, and there's quite a few sequences in it which just aren't funny at all. It's like quite flat. But there's others that's kind of fun. There's a whole sequence in the Scottish castle which was the home of M, who's been killed in this. James Bond goes to visit, pays respects, and it turns out it's full of young women who are his daughters or stepdaughters or something, and it's all a bit dodgy. James Bond's the only man there, and there's also one thing about the film I really like is the music. I think it's got some great music, both the theme, and there's actually an insert of a really terrific song by Burt Bacharach called "The Look of Love" during this film, where Peter Sellers has a love scene with Ursula Andress that it's alright, but the actual song is really spectacular, and also the actual main theme music of this film with like a Tijuana brass band kind of sound. It's kind of fun, and also the women in this are really beautiful. There's loads of them, there's dozens of them, and they look spectacular, and they fill the screen with them in like various 60s camp costumes of sorts, and they're really good looking. In fact Ursula Andress is supposed to be like one of the main stars, is quite kind of plain compared to a lot of the girls in this. I'll tell you, the most beautiful one in it, I think, is Miss Moneypenny, who's played by a lady called Barbara Boucher, who I've only seen her in two things: this and an episode of Star Trek called By Any Other Name, where she plays like an alien humanoid, and she is absolutely gorgeous. How she didn't go on to other films, I don't know. I guess she was an okay actress, but she just looked really beautiful to me. Good as Moneypenny in this, though. Like I say, it's a lot of fun. In fact, they've even got Orson Welles in it as Le Chiffre, as the bad guy. He's it's like Sexes, where he's doing magic tricks at a card table. It's like weird thinking. There's all sorts. to give you an idea, the film ends with a huge fight at a casino where there are monkeys in wigs, chimpanzees in wigs. There's cowboys and Indians fighting. There's a Frankenstein monster walking around at one point. But I liked it. Like I say, the girls were really beautiful. I mean, it wasn't sleazy. It was like they were done up in nice clothes and stuff, and they were just beautiful. There was like dozens of beautiful girls in it. There was lots of great music. There was also some pretty funny scenes. There were lots of unfunny scenes, but there were some pretty funny scenes with Peter Sellers, especially talking to like sort of stuffy MI5 officials. And Woody Allen was in it. I think this was his first film. It was kind of a lot of fun. Actually, I probably wasn't, because there is... you hear a sound clip of What's New Pussycat at one point. I'm trying to remember. I know he wrote it. I can't remember if he was in it now. Actually, What's New Pussycat is kind of similar. The vibe of that is similar to this film too. There's a few nods to the book. I mean, Le Chiffre's in it as a character, who's the bad guy in the film. There's also a bit where Peter Sellers, who's calling himself James Bond, following directives, is actually put in a seat without a bottom, which is part of a torture scene in the original book. But this isn't torture, this is more psychedelia. And they do a funny reference to the book where, in the book, Bond actually gets tortured with a carpet. He's sitting on a seat with with his bottom pushed through, and his stuff exposed, and someone has a go at him with a carpet beater. And it's quite horrible and bad in the book. But in this, there's this chair which is a throne, and you see a carpet beater kind of thing stuck on the side of it as a reference to the book there. Okay, I kind of enjoyed this. You've got to go in not expecting much in terms of coherent storyline. It's just a silly 60s film. I enjoyed it more than Thunderball, though. I found Thunderball a bit dull, whereas this was kind of fun. I'd give it 62 out of 100. Not just a little better than Thunderball, but I can't give it much more than that because it was such an unholy mess. Okay, that brings us on to the other film, James Bond film that came in 1967, You Only Live Twice. Here we have Connery going to Japan. Now, this really upped the game. Really enjoyed this film. This I consider Bond films come into sort of various sorts. There's ones where they're quite intense thrillers, for example, From Russia with Love. There's ones where it's silly camp kind of stuff. But I think of the high camp ones, You Only Live Twice falls into that grouping. But it does it really well, and I really enjoy it. There's one of the great things about this film is the music. This, I think, is my favourite Bond soundtrack. Both the theme song by Nancy Sinatra and the actual musical version of it, which John Barry calls Mountains and Sunset. It's an instrumental version of the same tune. Is a beautiful piece of music, and I really like Nancy Sinatra singing this song. I think she does a really great job. She's got that kind of deep, almost going off key kind of sound that really worked well for me. There's some spectacular sequences. We actually get to see Blofeld for the first time in this. It's Donald Pleasance. And it's Dr. Evil in essence, and that's the camp bit of it. There's all sorts of fun going on. Bond goes and visits a ninja school. Now these days we all know what a ninja is, and we know about martial arts. Back then, this is a proper spectacular travelogue Bond. They're showing people things that they probably hadn't seen in a lot of the world. Japan, glorious it was. It looked really glorious in this film. Really exciting and colourful kind of place. And there's a ninja school where he's training up. James Bond says at one point, we need commandos. He goes, I've got something better, ninjas. And you see the ninja school, and not only are they training with the old weapons, they're training with machine guns and such like. Really exciting. There's a whole section with involving helicopters. It's really well choreographed, where Bond flies a little gyroscope copter called Little Nelly with rockets and machine guns and smoke and floating mines. He lets out a whole packet of on little parachutes of these floating mines with helicopters going to and blah. Really spectacularly choreographed. Beautiful girls as usual. The helper guy is Tiger Tanaka, who's a big presence in the book. This is a spectacular book to read, by the way. It's a really interesting book to see a sort of Western eye view of Japan back in the 50s. Really interesting. Anyway, Taika Tanaka's a much bigger character in that, and he's a bit of a cipher in this. Doesn't have that much presence, but he's okay. But Blofeld's the main guy. Donald Pleasant's terrific Blofeld, the archetypal Blofeld, I'd say. Blofeld's been played by a few interesting people. Well, 3 interesting people, but I think Pleasance does it the best. Interestingly, this film features Charles Gray as a guy called Henderson, who's helping Bond, who dies fairly early on. He gets kind of stabbed, but he went on to play Blofeld in Diamonds Are Forever, and he was pretty okay as the Blofeld in that. It's kind of interesting that they reuse someone that way. There's all sorts of other fun things. There's like there's a piranha pool. People get dropped into the pool and they disappear completely. And Blofeld says something like they can strip a man to the bone in seconds, which we all believed back then when we saw it, but I don't think it's true at all. I mean, you've got the hollow volcano. What else do you want from Camp James Bond? A hollow volcano is where it's at, with ninjas parascending and shooting people and stuff like that. Really a lot of fun. There's all sorts of spacey kind of things going on. This was before men landing on the moon, so there's like space shots being interfered with. The whole thing is they're trying to, on behalf of China, they're trying to start a world war between Russia and America. China's paying Blofeld to do this. It's kind of cool. Really enjoyed this one. This one elevates the series quite a bit after the sort of flat-footedness of Thunderball, and I think this may be. I think this is definitely in my top 5 Bond films. It's maybe my favourite so far. I'm trying to figure out in terms of From Russia with Love, which is a different type of film entirely, and Goldfinger, which is more like a mesh between the two types of Bond. Yeah, I really like this. I'm going to give it 75 out of 100. Really recommend this one. Okay, next time I'll do this, it'll be a few podcasts down the line, but I'll be covering probably another 3. Probably it will be on a Majesty's Secret Service, Diamonds Are Forever, and then we get the first Roger Moore film, Live and Let Die. And I'll be looking forward to that because it's got some of my real favourite moments in those 3 films. Okay then, that's it for this second set of James Bond movies. Bye from me.